Hey everyone, Shaun Stevenson here, author of the Throne series, and today I am reviewing a book that took me a while to get through. And not only did it take me a while to get through this book, I had mixed feelings about it, which is why it took me a while to get through. So what book am I talking about? I am talking about Spooksville, book number 1 by Christopher Pike, The Secret Path. So I was not really sure what to expect when coming into Spooksville. I was excited to read it because I knew it was another kind of spooky middle grade series from the 90s, kind of around the same time as Goosebumps came out. So I was excited to see what is Spooksville going to be like. How is Christopher Pike going to have his take on a Goosebumps type story? So I was really excited about that. I was really interested to see what he was going to do. And so as I was reading this book, I had kind of a hard time getting through it because when I started the book, I didn't really know what to expect, and then I felt like the book started so slowly. So what is this book about? Adam moves to Springville, which is also called Spooksville by the locals, well, mainly the kids, because the kids have noticed there's some strange stuff that happens in this town. There's some odd things that happen around every corner, and the adults don't seem to notice, but kids sure do. And they're wondering what is really happening in Spooksville. So Adam moves to town, meets this girl named Sally, and that is where the adventure begins. They set off to find the secret path that goes through Spooksville and will end up in another Spooksville, in another dimension, basically, if they can find the path, and if the path's even real. Adam's not sure, but something spooky is waiting for them at the end of the secret path. Like I said, this book was kind of difficult to get through. It took me quite a while, actually a couple of weeks, because I would pick it up, I would read a little bit of it, I'd put it down, and this book is not a long book. It's pretty short. It's like 126 pages, and I actually think the font size is a little bigger than a Goosebumps book. So I was kind of curious why this was taking me so long to get through. Now, I will say, I finished reading this book, and it was in the last 50 pages where the whole thing flipped on me. So I read through about 70 of the pages very slowly. Took me a long time, but then the last 50 pages, I flew through those because the book takes an interesting turn into a place where I loved. So I'm so torn on this book because the first 70 pages, there's a little bit of a mystery, but it's very slow moving. And then you get to those last 50 pages when stuff starts to happen. And the whole time I was thinking, well, where has this book been? Because this is what I would like to read. I want this. I want this throughout the whole book, not just at the very end of the book. And I feel like this book feels like it's setting up all these different things, setting up a lot of stuff for maybe later Spooksville books. And the setup is just too slow in the beginning, in my opinion. I think it needed to be a little faster, but then once you get to the ending, it's so good. Now, they always say about like movies and things, it's not about how people felt really while they were watching it. It's how they felt at the end of the movie that really makes or breaks it. So someone might be like kind of plotting through a movie, but if it has a great third act, it can leave you really liking that movie. And I think that's the case here. I did not really love the journey leading up to those last 50 pages, but once I got to those last 50 pages, it was home sailing. It was amazing. I loved it. I couldn't stop reading. So I'm so torn on this book because I'm afraid that the other books are going to be like this, where there's maybe like 70 pages of plodding around and then boom, here it goes into the last part that's really good. I think what's interesting to me is sometimes Goosebumps books are similar in that they take a while to get moving, and then the last section is where you see the monster. It's where the spooky thing's actually happening, and then you move on from there into the rest of the book. And I think what's different there, though, is R.L. Stine manages to pull you along very slowly by doing a lot of mystery building. He's able to kind of weave the picture for you, so that way you're thinking, oh, what is really going on here? Wait, is this what I think? Plus, you know, going into a Goosebumps, unless it's your very first one, you know nothing about Goosebumps, you know there's going to be some kind of a twist near the end. And so I think that twist kind of pulls you through a Goosebumps book sometimes, where you're thinking, okay, well, this is all going to twist on its head at some point, and I'm curious what that will be, like what's going to happen. Spooksville did not have a twist like that. This book is a different kind of construction than an R.L. Stine Goosebumps book. And I think that's a good thing, because some could accuse Spooksville of, oh, you're just trying to profit off of the Goosebumps hype, or you're just trying to create your own version of Goosebumps. But this really is unique and different. It really has a different feel than a Goosebumps book, and it has a different level of intensity. That's one of the things that I actually really liked. Goosebumps books usually play it pretty safe. There's sometimes some ominous things if you think about it, but it's never actually explicitly said on the page. Like, oh, this is actually very terrifying what's happening, or this could happen to the characters and then they're done for. In Spooksville here, you have some legitimate horror sequences where there are legitimate scary things happening and the characters are in real danger, and I was very pleased with the ending. Now, this could have been the kind of book where it'd be very easy to have a deus ex machina at the very end of the book where someone comes in to save the day, and the whole time I was kind of waiting for that, honestly. I kept thinking, oh, someone's going to come in and save the day, and I had a suspicion of who I thought it would be, but I was so pleasantly surprised to see that the main characters had to get themselves out of the situation. I really, really loved that. It was so well done. I thought it was a great callback to different things that had happened earlier in the book. It was just perfect, in my opinion. I loved it. And well done, well done. So let's talk characters. Because Adam, our main character here, is kind of typical. He's kind of a typical kid that doesn't have a ton of personality. I can't even tell you really what personality traits Adam has. He's just kind of the kid character that pulls us through. And then you have the quirky side character Watch, who he is just a quirky sort of weird kid in town who's into all the lore of Spooksville. And then you have Sally Wilcox, who she's the spunky girl who's gonna come be brave and have courage when the boys are not. So there's some definite tropes going on with the characters, and there's not really character development, so to speak. It's more they're going through the story, they're realizing what's really happening in town, and that's kind of the gist of what they're going through. There's not a lot more to it. So on that side, I feel like the characters are weak, but the villains. Oh, the villains are good. I really loved the villains. And the villains' plans are so disturbing and so creepy. I just kept thinking, oh, no. And we see the threat of the villains come through. So it is definitely a real threat. It's not just talked about, it is shown in one sequence. So I think that is really well done. I think that Christopher Pike created iconic villain characters, and I have a feeling we have definitely not seen the last of them. So I'm excited to see what else happens with those villains later on. So, okay, let's come down to it. What do I think about Spooksville book number 1? This is a tricky one because, like I said, the first 70 pages, real rough to get through. It was very slow, very pulling the storyline along, very quietly almost. And then you get to that last section, and the last 50 pages, it just pulls you through so fast because something changes and there's some really interesting things happening. So I just kept thinking, how would I rate this book? Because it really was difficult to get through on one hand, but then once I got through part of it, it was very good. So at the end of the day, it really is, how did the book leave you feeling? And this book left me feeling 4 stars out of 5. I really enjoyed it. The ending section to me made up for the first part. And in fact, this was one of those books where I immediately after I finished, I said, I need book 2. I want book 2 right now because I want to pick up book 2 and start reading it. And I think that is a good sign of a book that's well done, leaves me wondering what's going to happen next, and has me wanting more. I think that is a good key thing for a book to do. So, would I recommend Spooksville, The Secret Path? Yes, I would. I think that if you can get through those first 70 pages, it's like reading The Fellowship of the Ring. You get through, I know this could be blasphemy to some people, but you get through those first 100 pages and then it gets real good after that. I just find the first 100 pages of Fellowship of the Ring in the Shire very boring and slow, and then things pick up once you get to the Barrow Wights. But anyways, that is a different book. In this book, it is a similar situation though, because once you get through those first 70 pages, this book just picks up, and I loved where it went. I really liked the ending, the atmosphere, what was happening, the final battle. It just hit all the things for me. So, until next time, everybody, keep reading. Bye!